And welcome back, folks, to another edition of Facebook Live. We're here at East West Digital Marketing. I'm Heath Esslinger with Fellowship of Christian Athletes, FCA Wrestling, and A Better Way Athletics, just trying to make a difference in this crazy sport world that sucks us into places we never intended to go. If that's you out there, stay tuned in. Send us a question. We would love to answer some of those questions, or at least corporately try to come up with some answers as we try to navigate on this journey. I got a lot of response from last week. We looked at this whole idea of maybe some precautions we should put on starting lessons and things like that really early in a kid's life. Tons of great dialogue. Here's what we want you to know. First and foremost, this is not a one-shoe-fits-all model. Life doesn't work that way. Again, I have 4 kids. I am a petri dish for the things we're talking about. Those 4 kids raised in the same home, same parents, dynamically different. So everyone is created differently, and we all have different things and different abilities and margins and things like that. So when we talk about those things, let me say where we're coming from. It's easy to look at a certain individual and make a decision based on that individual. Where we're coming from is from a corporate model, okay? From a corporate model. What are we doing that's best for the masses? How do we make decisions that say, hey, for the majority of people, this is probably a good idea if you put some of those things in place. For your children, if you have multiple children, these are probably some good ideas if you put those things in place. I love what Dr. Tim Elmore said. He is an absolute phenomenal teacher when it comes to these things, but he talks a lot about this idea of abundance and abandonment. And when we look at the whole sports world, one of the things that you see is that there's no balance. It's kind of like the political world. It's out of control. But abundance can be very bad. And so last week we looked at how do we come up with some precautions when it comes to abundance, because abundance can lead to things. I mean, it can lead to entitlement. I mean, it can lead to bad health if you just eat all the time and the wrong things. So abundance, we just want to keep it in check, and we don't want to give too much. But the other side of that is abandonment. We don't let them do anything. And by no means are we, with FCA Wrestling or A Better Way Athletics, are we saying, hey, you shouldn't let your kid participate or do anything. What we do believe is we should create some principles and boundaries that guide us as we go on this journey. Because one of the questions I get a lot is this. People will ask me, well, when do you think your kid should, or when should a kid start sport? Again, we looked a few weeks ago. I think 10 years old is probably when you should start organized sport. I'm throwing that number out there. There's no magical number, but I think 10 years old is probably a great corporate starting line for that's when kids can cognitively get it and they can understand, and we can start to coach them a little. All right. Then as 12 years old, we said, hey, you start organized. 14 is when you get your first trophy. All right. You don't get a trophy before then because they're just dangerous before that, whether they're first place or participation trophies. So we looked at some of those things. So instead, if we're parents and we're coaches and we're trying to navigate the sport world the best we know how with the information we've been given, maybe the question we need to start asking is not at what age should my son or daughter start sport. Maybe the better question is this: what do we want our son or daughter to look like when the journey of sport ends? When this thing we call sport comes to a close, what are the things that we want them to have learned as they've gone on this journey? As I meet with parents across the country and ask them, hey, what are the things you want your child to possess when they leave your household? I never hear playing time or batting average or things like that. It's things like empathy and character and integrity, respect, godliness, all the purity, things like that. And those are the things they want. But what happens is we get sucked into the sports world, and then we forget about those things, and we start chasing something that at the end of the day, it's going to leave them disappointed. All right. They're going to end that journey oftentimes disappointed when that becomes our focus. So again, it's not abandonment. We're not letting them not do anything. I think your kid should be out playing nonstop. But it's also not abundance. We're not going so overboard so early that we're creating some of those things. Last week, if you didn't watch that last week, then tune in. And here's what we want to do today. We want to give you a chance to ask some questions. So if you're logged on there, I know we got a lot of guys logged on. If you have a question, you say, hey, man, what do you think about this? Or, what are some areas here? the two reminders that I want to give us this week, and I want to say this all the time. I was just in a meeting earlier and I said these two things is when in doubt, and when you're struggling with, hey, what should we do? How much should we spend? Where should we go? I believe there's two principles as parents, especially, that we always have to keep like in the forefront of our mind. And the first principle is this: if you follow us on social media or you've listened to us before, you've heard me say it, I'm going to say it again. When it gets old to you, it means we're gaining some traction. And we got a new comment down there. Chad Pike's going to help me see some of these comments. So if you have a question, send it in. But the first principle is this: we can't get so consumed with what matters now that we lose sight of what matters most. So as you raise that young person and you introduce that young person into all these different things, always remind yourself to take a step back, to zoom out. We don't want to look at life right here because we don't see it for the right thing. We want to zoom out, and we want to realize that, hey, let's not get so caught up in this thing right now that we lose sight of what matters most. I was on the phone this morning. I had a buddy of mine call, and he said, "You're not going to believe this. I'm at a third grade basketball game, and these dads are just going crazy." Listen, those dads are probably really good people. But here's what happened. In that moment, they got so consumed with what mattered now that they totally lost sight of what matters most. Because I think if you ask any adult with a brain, they would probably tell you that third grade basketball is pretty pointless. All right. It's really not worth getting in an argument and losing our integrity over. But what happens is when we don't have boundaries in that moment, we get so consumed with that moment that we totally lose sight of what matters most. And we don't want our kids to see that in us, because then we're not producing those things that we say the sport journey should produce in our child. So here's the second principle I talk a lot about, and this is hard. I mean, and I'm living this right now. A 13-year-old daughter, and we're starting to give some leash in the sport world, and it's expensive, man. It is crazy. I don't know how some of you guys do it out there. All right, you guys call me. I would love to know how you're generating extra income, because it is so dang expensive. But here's the second thing, or second principle you always want to realize, is that my job as a parent is not to provide my child with all the best opportunities. That's a lie. My job as a parent is not to provide my child with all the best opportunities. If your child only receives all the best opportunities at about 20 years old, when life hits them right in the teeth, they're crushed. They're not going to know how to handle it. So my job as a parent, even on the sports journey, is not to provide my child all the best opportunities. It's to discern what are the right opportunities. And that's why, as we looked last week at lessons at 7 years old and taking your kid all these places, I'm not saying right, wrong, indifferent. I'm saying as a family, as a father, as a mother, as an organization that's working together to produce young people that we believe walk independently of the adult at some point and dependent on Christ, we've got to realize that our job is not to just provide all the best opportunities. I have a lot of people call and ask me, hey, what do you think I should do in this situation? What do you think I should do with my child in this situation? Don't ever make a decision based on that one child. You need to make a decision based on your family. Okay, we get in some dangerous waters when we start making every decision based on every child. You just can't do it. All right, you're a corporate family. You need to make decisions based on the entire family. And some of those decisions may not look what's best for that one individual child, but you've discerned in your heart, you've sought some counsel, you've done some research, and you said, hey, it may not be what I think is the best opportunity, but I've discerned it's the right opportunity. And if we multiply that over time, I believe as our kids leave our homes, they'll be more well prepared and well equipped for this journey we call life. So I don't see any questions coming in, man. With Josh Hines, do you believe in splitting youth practices up by ability? I mean, first of all, it's kind of an odd question right now. I mean, when you talk about youth practice, here's what's crazy. How is there so much difference in ability at the youth level? I mean, to be honest, none of them are that good. I mean, some of them are genetically more gifted. They're a little bit more advanced, but so here's what I think. I think if we're having to split it up that early, we probably should just delay them all. Here's what I know you don't have to split up. If all you're focused on is running, jumping, changing directions, hopping, skipping, galloping, all these things, that would be what we used to call physical education. Shout out to all my PE teacher friends. if we were focused on those things, we don't have to split the room. Okay. When we begin to focus on like certain skills and things like that, then we start feeling like we got to split the room. Here's the other danger of splitting the room is we start stereotyping kids way too early. Praise the Lord, no one stereotyped me early because I was not very good at wrestling. There's probably people tuned in here that killed me early. Some of you killed me later. But the reality of it is we got to be careful stereotyping kids that early. If we're in that situation, then listen, maybe it's not the kid's fault. Maybe we're just doing things not best. I mean, we've gone abundance. Hey, we're giving them so much that we've already separated who's good and who's not good. I mean, by 8th and 9th grade, we should be looking at, hey, who are the good guys? But I even believe at the high school level, the great coaches, everyone's there together because we're trying to create team. We don't have to work at creating selfish individuals in this world. We don't have to work at it. They come out of the womb that way. I have 4 kids. They're all selfish. They're all brats. They think about them. They argue over stuff they want. I have to teach them otherwise, that this world doesn't revolve around you and things like that. So, I'm not a big fan of splitting the room. I mean, you may split it by age, just for safety reasons. But, when you start splitting things by ability, I just think you get into some dangerous territories, especially at the youth level. I mean, it's kind of crazy. So that's a great question, though. Thanks, Chad, for responding there. Cassie, good thinking, good concept. Hey, definitely can apply to the classroom as well. Here's what we want you to know, that these things are not just sport related. We believe in educationally based athletics, not professional athletics at the 8-year-old level. So the lens that we're looking through is educationally based athletics. So again, the 2 things we talked about today, listen, don't get so consumed with what matters now, you lose sight of what matters most. And then, make sure you're not getting caught up and thinking you got to keep up with everyone else. Your job's not to provide your child all the best opportunities. It's to discern what are the right opportunities. T.J. Sayers, a good book that discusses this topic is Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell. So true, where they look at these hockey players. If they're born a certain age so early, they're ahead the rest of their life. I mean, they really are ahead the rest of their life. So thanks, T.J., straight out of Birmingham, Alabama, former UTC Wrestling Mock. Thanks for tuning in. TJ, any more questions out there today? Jason McCowan, where's he at? What's this question? I saw Coach McCowan hop on here earlier. What did you see it? Jason McCowan, shouldn't youth sports be the spark to find what they enjoy and what they don't? Can we not give them an opportunity to find out what they like and may not like? Nothing to lose mentality. Absolutely. I call that the playground. We shouldn't be pigeonhole, like putting them in a place where they're having to think, well, I'm a my kid right now, we're letting him do basketball because I won't let him wrestle yet. He's probably going to wrestle, all right, because he picked his parents wrong when it comes to basketball. There's no basketball bone in this body. So he's playing back. It's fun. We don't care, okay? We're just letting him run around and act silly, and it probably shouldn't even be organized. But I think the goal is we introduce them to tons of things. We call that activity, all right? Activities, play, it's life-giving. And then we kind of begin to see where they are and things like that. So I agree with you. We should allow it to kind of move them in a certain direction. But what we also want to do is make sure we're moving them towards some character directions. As far as here's what you want to be in life, here's how you want to treat people, here's how you show respect. We're big believers that respect's a choice. Respect isn't earned. Respect is a choice. I don't respect people because they've earned my respect. I respect them because it's a choice. So we want to make sure we're teaching those life lessons too. So any more comments out there, Chad, questions? If you do have questions, man, send us a message, and we'd love to respond to those in the next few weeks. But again, man, thanks so much for tuning in. We love doing this. We're trying to do more. We want to educate parents. We want to help coaches as they go on this journey. And we hope that you're enjoying getting to be a part of this as well. So reminder from today, don't get so consumed with what matters now. They'll live. Tomorrow is coming. Don't get so consumed with what matters now that you lose sight of what matters most. Second principle, don't try to give them all the best opportunities. Try to discern, you and your spouse, your family, what are the right opportunities. And I promise you this, you're going to look back and you're going to be grateful for the journey you got to go on. Last thing, parents, man, don't try to be their sport agent. Every time they get done, tell them how much you love to watch them play. Should we not be enjoying this journey we call sport? Force yourself to enjoy it. Draw some boundaries, you get to enjoy it. Coaches, man, coach them hard. All right, coach them super hard. Have an expectation for them, but make sure you love them even harder. So thanks for tuning in. From East West Digital Marketing, Heath Esslinger here with FCA Wrestling and A Better Way Athletics. We'll see you next week.